Friends, gather round and let me tell you a tale of passion, perseverance, and just a touch of madness. This is the story of Demobus. Now, Demobus wasn't your typical hero in Albion Online. He didn't crave the thrill of a Zerd versus Zerd battle, nor did he dream of conquering territories. No, Demobus, bless his cotton socks, had a singular, unyielding devotion. A devotion to fishing. Our dear friend Demobus, still the steadfast devotee of Albion's aquatic life, found himself one particularly freezing afternoon beside Dewdrop Pond. Now, this might not have been the actual name of the pond, but that's the name he gave this pond. This wasn't a bustling fishing hotspot, mind you. Dewdrop Pond was a tranquil little watering hole, frequented more by the occasional curious brigand than ambitious anglers. For Demobus, it was perfect. It was peaceful. It was quiet, and hopefully a plump brim or two to contribute to his dwindling silver supplies. Demobus had settled onto a mossy bank. His trusty fishing rod, affectionately nicknamed the Whisker Tickler, propped precariously on a forked stick. The sun dappled through the leaves, casting dancing patterns on the water's surface. A gentle breeze rustled nearby reeds, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and, if Demobus's nose wasn't mistaken, a hint of something vaguely fishy. He baited his hook with a juicy earthworm, wriggling enticingly, and cast his line with a practiced flick of his wrist. The bobber landed with a soft plop, sending gentle ripples across the otherwise still water. Demobus sighed contentedly. This was his happy place. No clamoring for resources, no sudden ganks, just the serene anticipation of a nibble. On this particular day, however, Demobus had made a slight adjustment to his fishing attire. It was a warm day, surprisingly so for Albion, and his usual layers of leather armor felt a tad restrictive. So beneath his fishing vest and sturdy trousers, he had opted for, well, let's just say he prioritized comfort. His oldest, most comfortable pair of woolen underpants, the ones with the slightly stretched out waistband, were his undergarment of choice. They were practically falling apart, held together more by habit and hope than actual elastic, but they were undeniably comfortable. Time drifted by with the languid pace of a lazy river. Demobus hummed a tuneless melody. Do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do-do. Mm-hmm. His gaze fixed on the bobber. A dragonfly with iridescent wings zipped right past his nose. A lone heron landed gracefully on the opposite bank, its sharp eyes scanning the water. Still no nibble. Come on, little fin friend, Demobus whispered, encouragingly. There's a lovely worm here with your name on it. Ha ha ha, figuratively speaking, of course. Fish don't have names, do they? He pondered this profound philosophical question for a moment before his attention was drawn back to his bobber, which had begun a series of subtle twitches. Ah, finally, he muttered, his heart doing a little flutter of excitement. He gripped his rod, ready to reel in his prize. The twitches became more pronounced. A definite tug now. This feels like a decent one. He pulled back sharply, setting the hook. The line went taut, and he began to reel. It wasn't a violent struggle, more of a steady pull, like dragging a stubborn weed from the mud. As he reeled, he felt a strange lightness, not in the line, but elsewhere. He glanced down, a flicker of unease creeping into his brow. His trousers felt looser than usual. He adjusted them self-consciously, attributing it to the perhaps losing a bit of weight from all that dedicated fishing. Ha ha ha! The fish was nearing the bank. It was a decent-sized bream, its scales shimmering in the sunlight. The Mobbus reached for his net, his focus entirely on securing his catch. He leaned forward, extending the net towards the water, and that's when disaster struck. The sudden movement, combined with the aforementioned compromised state of his undergarments, proved too much. With a soft give, the already tenuous waistband of his woolen drawers surrendered completely. The Mobbus froze, halfway through netting his brim. He could feel a distinct draft, a very unwelcome draft. He cautiously glanced down again, and his blood ran colder than the Dewdrop pond water. There, nestled amongst the reeds at the water's edge, was his beloved, albeit dilapidated, pair of underpants. They had slipped down his legs entirely and were now partially submerged, looking for all the world like a soggy, forgotten aquatic creature. The bream, sensing the sudden lack of tension on the line, gave a final desperate wriggle and flopped back into the pond with a triumphant splash, as if fully aware of the sartorial humiliation it had just indirectly caused. The Mobbus stared at the spot where his bream had been, then back at his sodden underwear. A wave of mortification washed over him. He quickly scanned the surroundings. Thankfully, the heron seemed more interested in actual fish, and no curious Spriggans appeared to have witnessed his predicament. The occasional distant gallop of a player was his only other reminder of the outside world. With a speed that belied his usual leisurely demeanor, the Mobbus awkwardly hitched up his trousers. He couldn't just leave his underpants there. What if someone found them? The shame, the gossip. He imagined the whispers echoing through the local chat. Did you hear about the Mobbus? Lost his, well, you know. He debated his options. He could try to fish them out with his net, but that seemed both undignified and likely to just further soak them. He could wade in, but the water looked surprisingly chilly, and he thought of his bare legs meeting the murky depths was less than appealing. Finally, with a sigh of resignation, he grabbed the forked stick that had been holding his rod. With the precision of a seasoned surgeon, he carefully nudged the submerged underwear towards the bank. After several precarious attempts, he managed to snag them on a submerged root and gingerly pull them ashore. There lay there, a sad, soggy testament to his pursuit of comfort over practicality. The Mobbus looked around again, a paranoid twitch in his eye. He quickly wrung them out as best he could, the damp wool clinging unpleasantly to his hands. What to do with them now? He couldn't exactly stuff them in his fishing vest. They were far too substantial, and definitely too damp. In a moment of slightly unhinged inspiration, the Mobbus looked up at the sun. It was still shining, albeit beginning its afternoon decline. He found a relatively secluded bush and, with a furtive glance in all directions, draped his unfortunate undergarment over a low-hanging branch. There, he muttered to himself, they can air dry. He imagined a passing adventurer mistaking him for some strange, forgotten piece of foliage. He returned to his fishing spot, feeling a strange mix of embarrassment and amusement. He cast his line again, the earlier tranquility slightly shattered by his recent wardrobe malfunction. As he waited for another bite, he couldn't help but chuckle. Of all the dangers in Albion, the fearsome beast, the cunning gankers, it was his own dilapidated underwear that had nearly led to his undoing. From that day forward, Demobus remained a dedicated fisherman, but also learned a valuable lesson. While comfort is important, especially on a long fishing trip, one should always consider the structural integrity of their undergarments. And perhaps, just perhaps, they should pack a spare pair. You never know when a particularly enthusiastic tug on your fishing line might lead to a completely different kind of slip. And there you go, folks. A funny story that happened to Demobus one day while fishing in the waters of the wonderful land of Albion. And remember, kids, you be good. And if you can't be good at it. PvP, that is. Ha 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 ha. Y'all have fun now. Ta ta.